1989. Shortly after, Lenore Gottlieb woke up.
I went to the back door, and I looked out. I said to my daughter, Mara, there's a bear in the backyard. And she didn't believe me. She said, Mom, what did you say? And I said, there's a bear in the backyard.
At 7 a.m., a call came into the Animal Control Center reporting a bear sighting. Worried about the dangers of a wild bear in the middle of suburbia, Animal Control and police officers were dispatched to the bear's last known location.
The chase proceeded back and forth through the neighborhood, in and out of backyards, across streets.
That animal was very, very agile, very powerful animal. It could climb over any wall that was there.
We'd lose her for a while and then we'd spot her again. At one point, she was running along in front of me and kind of just looking over her shoulder at me. And really didn't appear to be too bothered by me at all. And my first thought was, why am I chasing this bear? What am I going to do if this bear stops? She finally climbed up onto a roof of a house.
Department of Game and Fish Officer Richard Size was also sent to help with the capture.
My first concern was for the safety and welfare of people that were gathering around and seeing that the bear was not going to be injured. I had already prepared a dart for the tranquilizer gun and shot the bear while it was on the roof of the house.
After the dart went into the bear, we were able to keep good track of the bear at long distances. We did not want to razz the bear in any way, shape, or form. We just wanted it to calm down and let the drug take effect.
She's, yeah, I see her. Get her. There it is. So come this way. Now, be in traffic. Bring over the fence. Okay, let's go straight.
And the one thing I was noticing that the drug was not taking effect.
Various officials chased the bear through the city for more than 2 hours.
She finally got to a point where there was a real high wall that she couldn't get over. And we had her blocked on 3 sides. And it was natural instinct. She went up the pole.
I pulled up probably within seconds after it hit the pole. We had a very, very dangerous situation there. We had a mother bear who had been chased all over the city for a good 2.5 hours, and she was sitting on top of an electric pole, and at any time she could be electrocuted. Our idea was to try to keep her on top, as far on top as we could, until we could get the power turned off.
Officials feared the bear might come in contact with a live transformer, so an emergency call was placed to the power company.
Public service may help you.
To turn off power is not really all that easy. There was 12,470 volts running through that line. If we just turn the power off, it could turn hospitals off, it could turn police departments off. We're trying to locate where can we turn the power off without affecting a large block of the public.
When we continue.
And you could see her trying to hang on with her front paws, but there was no strength in her grip. She was going to sleep. She was letting loose.
We started to filter in and getting closer and closer to the bear. Our job, too, was to make sure that no one was going to be hurt.
At 9:30 a.m., Richard Size caught up with the bear again.
These animals are large carnivores, and their natural behavior is to be afraid of humans. However, when they're in a strange situation where they are trying to get away from humans, there could be some conflicts and potential for injury to both the bears and the humans.
We weren't sure if electricity could ever be cut off because of the size of this electrical equipment. Officer Sice then had to make a decision, which I do concur with.
I felt it would be best to bring that chase to an end as soon as possible. I never dreamed at the time that I was looking up at that bear and deciding to pull the trigger that the outcome would be what actually did happen.
We knew it took a long time for the drug to take effect. We figured we had quite a bit of time. Within minutes, the bear started to become groggy.
She turned around and started trying to come down the pole, and you could see her trying to hang on with her with her front paws, but there was no strength in her grip. She was going to sleep. She was letting loose. The transformer blew her off of the pole, maybe 30 or 40 feet above the ground.
Hey, get out of my way! Get out of my way!
That was probably the worst thing that could happen, and as fate would have it, it did happen.
It hurt quite a bit. We had put a lot of effort into trying to take her in a good, healthy state. We knew she was in very bad shape.
The critically injured bear was taken to the local zoo for treatment under the care of veterinarian Brett Snyder.
There was a real concern on our part of whether attempting to save this bear would really prolong its suffering or whether it was going to had a chance to really make a recovery. We didn't know if she was even going to survive. By having it under pain medication, we were able to find the bear could walk, could get up and walk in a limited way, and it was eating. It's taking a few bites of food. So then we decided to start our hands-on examinations. Bear was starved out. It was very thin. There were no obvious fractures, no broken bones. And at this point is when we discovered the extent of the burns on the back of both hind legs. The skin was destroyed and the underlying muscle tissue was just burned and destroyed very deep into the legs.
Just down the hall from the injured female was a young cub who had wandered into Albuquerque the day before. Officials suspected that the adult female bear had come into town to find a lost cub. Game and Fish Officer Scott Brown was looking after both bears.
The next few days after we captured this particular female, we had several other bears wander into town. And so we weren't really sure which one was the mother of this cub.
A long-term drought was forcing wildlife into the city for water.
Our first step was to take the cub in a cage and place it right next to the room where the injured mother bear was in, and to watch their reaction.
Mama's over this way.
And the cub began to, there's no other way to describe it, but bawl. And at first the mother would stay across the room. And then eventually the mother would come up and sit right next to the door. And the two of them would be where they could smell each other, where they could see each other, and to a certain extent where they could feel each other because the cub was reaching out through the bars of the cage. And we said, we think we've got the right mother and the right cub and we can put them together.
But the reunion would have to wait. The mother was still in critical condition, too weak to care for a cub. 2 months later, they finally felt she was strong enough to be reunited with her baby.
But there was still a long ways to go to get them back in the wild where they came from. Every day there was slight improvements over the day before.
By October, the bear had healed enough to be moved to an outdoor compound for the winter. Mother and cub were strictly isolated from humans to maintain their natural wildness. 8 months after capture, both bears were sedated for one last time for their trip back to the wild.
I think as far as her physical well-being, she's strong enough. She can climb trees, moves around, she has normal behavior. She's very lucky, I think, that she could take that kind of a shock and walk away from it.
Sleep in there for a while? Yeah, and we'll get our hour.
Both bears were tagged, and the mother was fitted with a radio collar so they could be tracked after their release.
The next thing is going to be, will the release be a success? Will she go back and mind her own business and become a bear? And that's still the big question.
The bears were taken to a secluded area in the mountains above Albuquerque. Only a handful of people were invited to witness what officials hoped would be the bears' last contact with humans. Game and Fish Officer Richard Size got the chance to set them free.
Ready.
wildlife and people have to interact in some way at some time. And unfortunately, when that interaction, when that conflict happens, too many times it's a wildlife that gets the short end of the stick. We had a situation that had turned basically into our worst nightmare. And now we could say that the nightmare is over. And I only wish that everybody that showed concern for that bear, that everybody that heard about the bear and felt some kind of loss when it was injured the way that it was injured, could experience in that same victory, that same feeling of accomplishment, and that same feeling that all right, something's back free and wild and forever.